Mark Fuller lived a life many only dreamt of, tucked away in the heart of the rugged mountains. His cabin, a sturdy structure built from weathered logs and surrounded by towering pines, was a true reflection of his spirit. The wooden walls held stories of solitude where he cherished the silence that came with living off the beaten path. Each day began with the sun rising over the jagged peaks, casting golden rays that danced across the forest floor. For Mark, mornings were sacred moments of peace. He was known among the few nearby townsfolk as a man of great skill and resourcefulness. Whether it was hunting for food or mending equipment, Mark had an uncanny ability to survive in the wild. His weathered hands told tales of countless adventures, scaling cliffs, navigating treacherous terrain, and living through harsh winters. But it wasn't just his physical strength that defined him, it was also his profound respect for nature. He had a bond with the land that went beyond mere survival. It was a relationship built on understanding and reverence. Life in the mountains was not always easy, but Mark preferred its challenges to the hustle and bustle of town life. He enjoyed watching deer wander through the trees and listening to the calls of various birds echoing in the crisp air. As he sat on his porch sipping coffee each morning, he felt an overwhelming sense of freedom that came from being alone with his thoughts and the beauty surrounding him. However, solitude can be a double-edged sword. While Mark deeply cherished his independence, there were times he felt an ache for companionship. The laughter of friends around a campfire or sharing stories with someone who understood his way of life was something he missed. Yet as he watched mountains change their colors with the shifting seasons, he often reminded himself that perhaps solitude was part of his journey. On this particular day, everything shifted unexpectedly when danger lurked silently nearby. The tranquility of Mark's world shattered as he noticed movement among the bushes. A pack of wolves prowled through the underbrush, their eyes glinting with hunger and intent. They were not just wandering, they seemed to be stalking someone, an abandoned lady who had unwittingly crossed into their territory. Mark's instincts kicked in immediately. He grabbed his rifle and hurried outside to assess the situation. The wolves were close now, circling cautiously, sensing both opportunity and threat. His heart raced not out of fear but from a sense of duty to protect those who could not protect themselves. With steady hands, he fired warning shots into the air, a loud crack that echoed through the valley like thunderclaps against stone. The wolves scattered momentarily, allowing him to focus on the lady caught in their sights. She looked terrified yet determined as she stood frozen in place. Unbeknownst to Mark at that moment was her true identity, the daughter of a judge who had been feared, abducted by dangerous men lingering in these wilderness areas. But none of that mattered now. All that mattered was getting her to safety and ensuring she was out of harm's way. In offering her shelter within his cabin walls, Mark would soon uncover not just her past but also a connection that neither expected, a spark igniting amidst chaos on this fateful day in the mountains. As Mark peered through the trees, his heart sank at the sight before him. The pack of wolves, their fur glistening like shadows in the dappled sunlight, moved with a predatory grace. Their keen eyes were fixed on the frightened lady standing alone, a stark contrast to their stealthy demeanor. Mark's instincts kicked in. He felt an urgent rush of adrenaline coursing through his veins. The wolves didn't seem to notice him just yet, but Mark could sense the danger thick in the air. Tension built as he crouched low, observing the scene unfold. The lady was oblivious to her peril, gazing into the trees as if searching for something or someone. Her wide eyes reflected both fear and determination. It was clear that she would not be an easy target, not if her posture and stance were anything to go by. Mark knew he had little time to waste. He could hear the soft rustling of leaves as the wolves crept closer, their intent unmistakable. Without hesitation, he took hold of his rifle and swiftly emerged from the confines of his cabin. Each step over the uneven ground felt weighted by urgency. He needed to act decisively before it was too late. Raising his gun skyward, Mark fired off a couple of shots in rapid succession. The loud crack echoed through the valley, a warning shot meant to scare off the predators. It worked momentarily, sending the wolves scattering into the underbrush with startled yelps and flashes of fur darting away like pale whispers among the leaves. The lady turned sharply at the sound of gunfire, her heart racing as panic set in. "Over here!" Mark shouted, trying to project calm amidst chaos. He waved his arms in a beckoning motion, urging her toward safety. Her eyes met his with a mix of fear and confusion, but instinct kicked in. She darted toward him with a speed that surprised even herself. Once she reached him, there was barely a moment for introductions or questions as he ushered her inside his cabin's sturdy walls. The wooden door banged shut behind them just as Mark heard distant howls of frustration from the wolves regrouping outside, realizing their prey had slipped away. Inside, the cabin felt like a fortress against the wilderness's threats. Its thick walls were a protection that comforted them both. Mark's heart raced not only from adrenaline but also from curiosity about this mysterious lady who had stumbled into his life during such an alarming encounter. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern edging his voice as he stepped closer to gauge her well-being. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as she nodded slightly, still catching her breath. I didn't know they were following me," she stammered, trembling slightly as she leaned against a log wall for support. He noticed how she steadied herself and looked around with wide eyes, taking in the rustic decor of animal pelts and handcrafted furniture that defined his home. There was an unspoken bond forming between them amidst their shared sense of peril, two souls brought together by fate while facing nature's harsh realities. As they stood together in that small sanctuary within vast wilderness, both sensed that this encounter might change everything, though neither knew just how entwined their fates would become in just 24 hours. The moment Mark pulled the trigger, the loud crack of his rifle shattered the tense silence of the forest. The wolves, who had been stalking their prey with primal intention, recoiled at the sound as if struck by lightning. Their piercing eyes widened, and for a split second, confusion replaced their predatory focus. Mark felt a surge of relief wash over him. He knew he had gained precious seconds to act. As the pack scattered into the underbrush, he turned his attention back to the lady, whose expression had transformed from fear to bewilderment. She stood there, frozen by shock at both the gunfire and her narrow escape from danger. Mark's heart raced, not just from adrenaline but from a deep-seated need to protect her. He could not let her remain in such a vulnerable position. "Over here," he shouted again, urgency lacing his voice as he waved her closer. The woods echoed with the distant growls of wolves regrouping, their fury palpable in the crisp air. Time was running out before they decided to return for their lost prey. Instinctively responding to his voice, she sprinted toward him, her feet barely grazing the ground as she rushed inside his cabin. Mark followed swiftly behind, slamming the door shut just in time as shadows flickered outside like dark phantoms searching for what they had lost. Inside, quiet enveloped them like a heavy blanket. The cabin felt secure against nature's threats, yet tension still hung thick in the air. Mark leaned against the door for a moment to catch his breath, acutely aware of how close they had come to disaster. "Are you hurt?" he asked gently as he turned to face her. She shook her head but seemed shaken all the same. I didn't think I'd be safe out here," she murmured, still trembling slightly. Mark stepped towards her and studied her closely. She appeared fragile yet resilient. "It's not safe alone in these woods," he replied earnestly. "Those wolves are more than just hungry. They're predators that will hunt anything they see as an opportunity." His voice calmed down as he spoke. This encounter was more than just an instinctual reaction. It was about showing bravery in a moment of need. The lady took a deep breath and leaned against one of the wooden beams, supporting the cabin's structure. "I didn't realize how close I was to danger," she admitted softly. Mark nodded, recalling how quickly everything had unfolded. He felt pride swell within him. His decision to fire those warning shots was not only brave but necessary. He had acted on instinct when it mattered most, proving that courage doesn't always come from fearlessness but rather from deciding to confront danger head-on for someone else's sake. "Why were you out here alone?" he asked gently, wanting to know more about this mysterious woman who suddenly filled his life with uncertainty. As Mark waited for her answer, he realized that this encounter might not only change her fate but perhaps redefine his own as well, a turning point leading them both toward unexpected journeys ahead. With wolves lurking outside and uncertainty hovering above them like dark clouds, they would have little time before confronting whatever lay ahead, together or apart, but fate had already drawn them closely together in that moment of peril and bravery. As the cabin settled into an uneasy quiet, Mark turned to the woman whose life he had just saved. Her wide eyes were now scanning their surroundings, taking in the rough-hewn walls adorned with rustic decorations that told stories of a solitary life in the mountains. "You still seem shaken," he said softly, hoping to ease her anxiety. "I've never been this far into the wilderness before," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "I thought I'd be okay. I didn't think," she trailed off, glancing down at her hands, which fidgeted nervously. Mark, wanting to draw her out of her shell, asked gently, "What's your name?" She hesitated for a moment, then looked up at him with renewed determination. "Clara. Clara Delaney." The name stirred something familiar within Mark's memory, a connection he couldn't quite place but felt instantly significant. "Delaney," he echoed as realization struck him. "Are you related to Judge Delaney?" "Yes," she confirmed with a frown that creased her brow. "He's my father." The moment hung heavily between them as Mark processed this revelation. The judge was a respected figure in the nearby town, known for his tough stance against crime and the notorious gang believed to be operating in the area. News of his daughter's disappearance had rippled through the community like wildfire. Many feared she had been targeted for abduction, especially given the gang's recent activities. "What are you doing all the way out here?" Mark asked carefully. "I needed some time alone," Clara explained, embarrassment washing over her face. "But I never expected something like this to happen." There was vulnerability in her voice that tugged at him. She seemed so confident earlier, yet now appeared fragile and isolated. "And now you found yourself alone in the woods with hungry wolves?" He offered a hint of playfulness to lighten the atmosphere. Clara managed a small smile, but it quickly faded into resolve as she straightened up and took a deep breath. "I didn't think it was dangerous here. I thought it would give me clarity." She hesitated again before admitting, "I'm scared they're coming for me." Mark understood all too well the underlying dangers lurking beyond his forest boundary. The wolves were only a part of the threat that awaited outside. The notorious gang had been rumored to be actively searching for Judge Delaney's daughter since her disappearance. "Right now," Mark said firmly, stepping closer to her, "you're safe here." His protective instinct surged forth once more. He couldn't allow anyone or anything to harm her under his watch, even if that meant facing down an entire gang of criminals. Clara's eyes widened at his words. Perhaps it was realization dawning upon seeing how resolute he appeared amidst the chaos surrounding them. There was an unspoken bond forming between them, a shared sense of purpose forged in urgency and survival as they braced themselves against not only nature's threats but humanity's darker side as well. "What do we do now?" she finally asked with determination sparkling in her gaze. "First," Mark replied strategically, "we listen and keep ourselves quiet while we plan our next move." As both settled into a determined silence laced with courage and resolve, they steeled themselves for what lay ahead, not just against wolves or men, but against whatever fate awaited them next on their intertwined paths through danger and uncertainty. As the night crept slowly upon the mountains, a chill settled in the air, wrapping around Mark and Clara as they sat in the cabin. The flickering glow of the fireplace danced shadows across the walls, creating an intimate atmosphere that belied the danger lurking outside. Clara pulled her knees close to her chest, her earlier bravado replaced by a quiet vulnerability that tugged at Mark's heart. "Thank you for saving me," she finally said, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft but filled with sincerity, and Mark felt a warmth spread within him at her gratitude. "It was instinct," he replied modestly, glancing at her. "I couldn't just stand by and watch." Clara met his gaze with wide eyes, searching for something deeper in his expression. "You put yourself in danger for me," she pointed out, her voice trembling slightly. A hint of admiration flickered between them, igniting something that neither had anticipated. Mark shifted closer, feeling an undeniable pull toward her. "I'll do it again if I have to," he said firmly, wanting to reassure her that she was safe in his care. He could sense both their hearts racing beneath the weight of the moment, a tension that wasn't solely born from fear but also from the uncharted territory of new emotions blossoming between them. "Tell me about yourself," Clara prompted after a pause, eager to shift their focus away from their predicament while seeking connection amid chaos. Mark chuckled softly, scratching the back of his head. "Not much to tell. I've spent years living out here, finding peace in nature," he admitted. His tone turned reflective as he continued, "But sometimes solitude can feel heavy." "I understand that," Clara shared earnestly, her eyes glistening as she spoke. "I thought being alone would offer clarity after everything, but now I see how fragile life is out here." Her words resonated with Mark, who had faced countless challenges alone in his wilderness existence yet had never felt quite so connected to another person before. As they spoke, an unspoken bond began to weave between them, one built on shared experiences of fear and survival laced with budding affection. The tension shifted when Clara leaned closer to him out of instinctive trust, pulling away from the burning embers of her earlier panic. In this small space fortified against threats outside, they found solace in each other's company, a comforting refuge amidst uncertainty. "Do you think they'll come for me?" she asked suddenly, breaking the spell with a note of worry. Mark's expression hardened with determination. "We'll be ready if they do," he promised her. "But right now we focus on staying safe." As time passed and their conversation deepened into laughter and shared stories about their lives, his rugged wilderness existence and her sheltered upbringing, more than just friendship began to blossom between them. Each story became a thread weaving tighter bonds as laughter mingled with quiet moments of understanding. The cabin felt alive with their energy. It became a cocoon where danger faded into the background as they forged connections through shared fears, dreams, and unexpected sparks of romance. In this space carved out from chaos, Mark and Clara found themselves not just allies against external threats, but potential companions on a journey that could forever change both their lives. As night deepened outside and stars twinkled through the cabin's small window like distant memories beckoning them forward, neither could ignore the palpable chemistry growing stronger with each passing moment. A spark ignited amidst danger that might light their way through whatever awaited them next. The scene shifted suddenly and the warmth of the cabin faded as a flashback unfolded in Mark's mind, one filled with the anxiety and desperation of a community grappling with fear. The bustling town square was alive with murmurs and anxious faces as Judge Delaney stood at the center, his usually composed demeanor now tinged with worry. "Everyone, please listen," the judge called out, his voice echoing off the old brick buildings that surrounded them. People had gathered, drawn by the whispers of Clara's disappearance and the looming threat of danger from the notorious gang that had been terrorizing the region. A hush fell over the crowd as they turned toward him, their eyes wide with concern. "My daughter is missing, and we believe she may have been taken," he continued, his tone firm yet heavy with emotion. "This gang has been targeting young women, luring them away from safety. We cannot let fear grip this community. We must act." Gasps rippled through the townsfolk as anxious parents clutched their children closer, exchanging worried glances. "What can we do?" one man shouted from the back. "We need to find her." The judge raised a hand to calm the crowd. "I urge you to stay vigilant. Keep your doors locked and do not venture into the woods alone. I will coordinate a search effort first thing in the morning," he declared, determination etched on his face. But underneath lay a current of helplessness and dread. As whispers filled the air about how Clara had gone for a walk to clear her head, suspicion brewed regarding the gang's intentions. The townspeople exchanged theories, some claiming that they had seen shadows lurking near the outskirts of town, while others recalled rumors of strange figures prowling around at night. Each possibility felt more sinister than the last. "Nothing like this has ever happened here," a woman murmured, her voice quivering with fear. "What if we don't find her?" Judge Delaney's gaze swept over the crowd, a mixture of pride and despair flooding his heart as he realized how much they cared for his family. This was a town built on solidarity. Neighbors supported one another in times of need. Yet deep down, he feared that all of it might not be enough to protect his precious daughter. Meanwhile, Clara's name hung heavily in the air like an unspoken prayer among them, a reminder of innocence lost in a world that seemed increasingly dark. As the judge concluded his speech with a rallying call for unity, Mark's heart raced in response to this shared burden resting on his shoulders. The sense of urgency suddenly pulsed through him. In that moment, he saw the faces of parents who could be his own children, who reminded him of the laughter he once cherished in his life before solitude claimed him. He felt compelled to do something, anything, to help find Clara and bring her back safely. With the flashback fading and reality returning to the cabin, Mark's determination solidified as he glanced at Clara sitting beside him, still processing what he had just remembered. He knew he wasn't merely shielding her from wolves, he had to brace himself against an entire gang poised to exploit her vulnerability. "Let's make a plan," Mark said resolutely, breaking the silence that had enveloped them again. Clara looked up at him, her eyes filled with both fear and hope, igniting their unspoken bond further as they prepared to confront whatever dangers awaited them together. In this moment of clarity, they understood that their fates were intertwined, both driven by the same mission, to reclaim safety in a world where darkness loomed ever closer. The stakes were high, but so too was their determination. What began as an instinctual act of bravery might just lead them both to discover strength neither knew they possessed. As dawn broke over the mountains, a soft glow painted the sky in hues of pink and orange. The light illuminated the forest surrounding Mark's cabin, and for a moment it felt peaceful. But inside, tension hung thick in the air as Mark and Clara prepared for whatever might come next. Mark had been restless all night, his instincts alerting him to the dangers that lurked beyond their refuge. "Do you think they'll really come for me?" Clara asked, her eyes reflecting both worry and determination. "They will," Mark replied firmly, wanting to reassure her while also facing the reality of their situation. "But we'll be ready." Minutes later, just as they began to develop a strategy, the sound of rustling outside caught their attention. Clara's breath hitched in her throat. What was that? Mark stayed quiet as he approached the window, peering through the thin slats of wood. His heart raced. He could see shadows moving near the edge of the woods. The hairs on his neck stood on end as he recognized the shapes, a group of men gathering outside, clearly approaching their cabin with purpose. "Stay here," he instructed Clara, glancing back to ensure she remained hidden from view. He could feel her tension even from afar, that electric pulse of fear fueling both their resolve. As Mark stepped outside onto the porch, his hand gripped tightly around his rifle. The morning air was crisp and sharp against his skin, yet it did nothing to calm his nerves. The sun cast long shadows across the ground as more figures came into view, townspeople bearing weapons and fierce expressions. "Mark Fuller," one man shouted, stepping forward with authority that marked him as one of Judge Delaney's trusted deputies. "We're here for Clara." "Where is she?" "Whoa. Hold on," Mark replied, trying to keep things calm. "She's safe inside, but what's going on? You don't need to act like this." The men exchanged glances filled with uncertainty and mistrust. They didn't know who Mark truly was or what had transpired between him and Clara during their time together in isolation. "Safe? She was lost. You got her trapped," another voice called out from behind. "I'm not trapping anyone," Mark shot back defensively, stepping down from the porch to stand tall against them. "I saved her from wolves last night." He gestured back toward the cabin to emphasize that she was indeed unharmed. At that moment, Clara stepped out carefully from within the cabin's shadows when she heard Mark's voice. Her appearance startled everyone present. Hope flickered in her father's men at seeing her alive but was quickly shadowed by uncertainty. "Clara," one of them exclaimed in disbelief as they turned towards her. "Wait. I'm fine," she called out quickly before any accusations could escalate further. "Mark helped me when I needed it most." She approached cautiously but with conviction in her stance. As tensions heightened further fueled by misunderstandings, Mark felt himself becoming an unintentional adversary amongst those who were supposed to protect Clara. Her father's men didn't trust him. Yet deep down, he knew he couldn't let this confrontation spiral into chaos. "We need to work together," he reminded them both urgently and firmly. They all shared a common goal: to keep Clara safe from broader dangers looming ahead. Their hearts raced with equal parts fear and desperation beneath a complicated web of emotions. In that fragile moment filled with uncertainty undergirded by danger brewing nearby, connections shifted. Both familial ties and newfound alliances teetering at an urgent precipice, leading their fates forever intertwined amidst growing confrontation in pursuit of clarity and safety. The air around the cabin was thick with tension, voices clashing as Clara's father's men confronted Mark, unsure of whom to trust. Mark stood firmly, unwavering in his determination to defuse the situation. He knew that misunderstanding could easily lead to chaos, and he needed to find a way to bridge the gap between them. "Listen, everyone," he called out, raising his hands slightly to signal for calm. "I understand your concern for Clara. Believe me, I've been just as worried for her safety." The deputies exchanged uncertain glances, their expressions reflecting a mix of anger and confusion. "Then why was she out here alone?" one man demanded, stepping forward with a frown. Mark could feel Clara's eyes darting to him, urging him silently for support. "She wasn't alone. I found her being stalked by wolves," Mark explained earnestly. "I brought her here for safety. She needs protection from more than just wild animals." His voice was steady, but he could sense the hesitation in the crowd. Clara stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "You have to believe us." "Mark saved my life," she said, her tone filled with conviction. Her words hung in the air like an olive branch extended to both men and Mark, an attempt to unite them against the real threats they all faced. Still wary, one of the men folded his arms across his chest. "And how do we know you're not working with those who took Clara? We don't know anything about you." "I can show you," Mark offered, his heart racing at the idea of proving himself in the eyes of her father's men. "There are signs in the woods, tracks and scents that confirm my story. If you'll allow me to guide you through them, I can demonstrate my intentions." For a moment, there was silence as the men considered this. Mark seized the opportunity to emphasize a point that was crucial to their survival. "But we need to work together," he continued, meeting each man's gaze in turn. "If we are divided by distrust, we give those who threaten Clara the advantage." Clara chimed in, "We have to focus on protecting each other instead of fighting amongst ourselves. I'm here because of him. You have to trust us." The atmosphere shifted slightly as Clara's words resonated with the men. Even in doubt, they recognized a call for unity against a common enemy lurking beyond the tree line. Mark stepped closer to Clara, catching her eye briefly, a silent exchange loaded with support and strength he hoped would flow into the others as well. "Let's combine our efforts. I know these woods better than anyone, he urged. Together, we can uncover what's truly happening here and make sure nothing happens to Clara again. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of deliberation, the man who had first spoken lowered his weapon slightly. All right, he said cautiously. We'll give you a chance, but know that if this goes sideways, his voice trailed off into an unspoken threat. I understand, Mark replied with a nod. Trust was fragile, and it needed nurturing amidst fear and uncertainty. As they began assembling their plan, Mark felt a surge of gratitude as Clara stood beside him, her expression one of relief mixed with hope. Despite the danger encroaching around them, he could feel their bond strengthening further, both supporting one another while forging alliances with those who had once viewed them as adversaries. In moments like these, when communication bridged divides, true connection formed under pressure. Together, arm in arm against unknown challenges ahead, they readied themselves to face whatever lay in wait beyond their small sanctuary in the woods. As the sun began to rise higher in the sky, casting warm light across the clearing, the mood among the men shifted from one of suspicion to cautious optimism. The anger that had once fueled their confrontation started to fade, replaced by a sense of understanding. Mark stood at the forefront, his heart pounding but his resolve steady. All right, said the lead deputy, breaking the silence that had settled over them, we've all had enough tension for one morning. He extended his hand firmly toward Mark. Thank you for being honest with us. We're grateful that Clara is safe. Mark took the deputy's hand, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders as they shook. I only did what I felt was right. A sense of relief washed over him as more members of the group stepped forward to shake his hand in acceptance, some clapping him on the back as if welcoming him into their ranks. Clara stood nearby, her eyes shining with gratitude and pride as she witnessed this resolution. With a smile blossoming on her face, she felt a spark of hope reigniting within her. She stepped up beside Mark and she too extended her hand to each man. I'm so thankful to see all of you here, she said earnestly. It means everything to know that we're united. One by one, each man shook Clara's hand with respect, recognizing her bravery and resilience throughout this ordeal. It was evident that many in the group now viewed Clara not just as Judge Delaney's daughter, but as an integral member of their community who had faced danger head-on. Meanwhile, Mark's heart swelled with warmth as he watched Clara connect with those around her. Their previous misunderstandings slowly transformed into mutual respect and camaraderie. For Mark and Clara, this moment marked a significant turning point, not only in their own relationship but also within the community itself. We owe it to each other to keep this place safe, one of the deputies said, glancing meaningfully between Clara and Mark. We can't let those who threaten us divide us any further. Exactly, Mark replied earnestly, knowing this sentiment echoed his own thoughts. There might be more dangers lurking out there than we realize. He gestured toward the expansive forest beyond them where shadows danced among trees, a reminder that their fight was far from over. Moved by their newly forged bonds, Clara looked around at everyone gathered before her. Fear had brought them together initially, but it was trust and understanding that would ensure their survival moving forward. As the gathering dispersed with renewed purpose and determination filling the air like a vibrant breeze through the trees, Clara turned to Mark with a soft smile lingering on her lips. I can't believe how much has changed in just a few hours. Mark nodded in agreement. It feels like we've accomplished something important, but there's still much work ahead. They shared a moment of unspoken connection amidst their surroundings, the rising sun illuminating promise rather than peril, highlighting sparks of romance blooming beneath layers of tension and survival. In this fragile yet powerful moment of unity fostered through adventure and adversity, both Mark and Clara felt ready to face whatever challenges awaited them next. Together as partners testing uncharted territories not just in nature but within each other's hearts as well. As the last remnants of night faded away, the mountains bathed in the warm light of dawn, casting a breathtaking glow across the landscape. The peaks, once shrouded in darkness, now shimmered in hues of pink and gold, their majestic silhouettes standing tall against the awakening sky. It was a sight that filled the heart with a sense of hope, as if nature itself was heralding new beginnings. Mark and Clara stood side by side on the cabin's porch, their earlier tension replaced by a serene appreciation for the beauty around them. The morning air was fresh and crisp, invigorating their spirits as they absorbed the tranquil moment. Birds began to chirp, welcoming the day with melodious songs that danced through the trees and lifted their hearts. It's beautiful, Clara whispered, her gaze fixed on the colorful panorama before them. For a fleeting second, it felt as if all the chaos they'd endured receded far into the background, leaving only this shared experience, two souls connected amidst a world that had threatened to tear them apart. Mark nodded, captivated by both the view and Clara's presence beside him. "It really is," he replied softly. In that moment, he was acutely aware of how much had shifted between them. What had begun as an urgent need for protection had blossomed into something deeper, a connection forged through shared trials and newfound respect. "What do you think lies beyond those mountains?" Clara asked, her curiosity shining through her eyes. "More mountains, I suppose," Mark chuckled lightly. "But perhaps also more challenges and opportunities." He turned to her then, serious yet gentle. "Whatever lies ahead, I want you to know that you don't have to face it alone." The sincerity in his voice resonated deeply with Clara. She felt a warmth spread within her, an anchor amidst uncertainty. Their journey together had only just begun, but she sensed that each new challenge would serve to further cement their bond. They both stared at the radiant peaks, their hearts swelling with unspoken promise. The looming threats they faced could not overshadow this moment. Instead, it illuminated their budding romance like the first light of dawn piercing through darkness. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps on gravel broke their reverie as Judge Delaney's men began to emerge from the forest nearby. Their faces still bore traces of last night's tension but were now softened by relief at seeing Clara safe. The sun glinted on their weapons as they approached cautiously but with gratitude palpable in the air. Clara stepped forward, her smile brightening as she faced them, embodying resilience and strength. Mark watched proudly as she embraced her father's men and welcomed them back into her life, her bravery radiating like the morning sun breaking through clouds. In that moment, Mark knew they would face whatever lay ahead together. This incident had strengthened not just their individual resolve but also fostered unity within their small community. The mountains standing tall behind them became symbols not only of stability but of hope for new beginnings amid uncertainty. As they prepared to embark on this journey together, filled with both danger and promise, Mark felt ready to embrace whatever challenges awaited. The beautiful dawn light served as a reminder that even after darkness comes a renewal filled with light, love, and adventure waiting to unfold.